Ujú. Ujú. Prognosis. Prognosis. Mm. Ujú. 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 Hello, there are 15, eh? So shall we wait a little bit or shall we start? Shall we start then? That means in your group. Hello. We'll wait for 2 minutes, right? Balum chutta. Okay. Mhm. Okay, right. Now still the same 15 are there. It doesn't matter. So we'll start now. Right. We have been waiting for some time. Okay. So can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, right. Okay. Now with this is a small part of the types of counseling. So that counseling can be categorized into three types. They are directive counseling, non-directive counseling, and eclectic counseling, right? So now earlier we learned about counseling. There are different fields, but here there are another three parts of counseling. They are called directive counseling, and eclectic counseling, right? So in the case of the directive counseling, the chief exponent, the person who has found this, who has given the ideas to directive counseling is B.G. Williamson. So here in directive counseling, it is counselor oriented. That means the major part is played by the counselor. Now, actually, that in counseling that we know that counseling is a process. The client is us and counselor is only facilitating. But here in directive counseling, the counselor plays the major role because he is the one who is solving the problem. Right now, normally in counseling, according to the theory of counseling, counselor is only a facilitator, and the client is the one who brings solutions. Here, in this theory, directive counseling, it is counsel oriented, and counselor plays a major role in solving the problems. There, the counselor identifies, defines, and diagnoses the problem, right? The counselor එක ප්‍රශ්නය අඳුරගන්නවා, ඒක අර්ථ දක්වනවා, ඒක රෝග විනිශ්චය කරගන්නවා, then provide a solution, right? So then counselor has a major role to play in directive counseling. So he directs thinking, and he explains, he interprets, and advises the client. Okay. So then there are three types of counseling: directive, indirective, and eclectic counseling. In directive counseling, the major part of counseling is played by the counselor because he identifies the problem, defines the problem, diagnoses the problem, and he gives the solution. So he directs people to think by giving explains, he interprets, and he advises the client. Then, so the counselor in directive counseling, now these activities are followed by him, right? By the counselor. So he conducts an analysis, right? By collecting data. He collects data related to the problem of the client, and he does an analysis because he collects data from different sources, not only one. So like he will giving a questionnaire, interviewing, then studying the documents, history of the client, if he has some medical reports, he will study them. So like that, right? The counselor in directive counseling, that he collects data from different sources, right? And he does an analysis because that by collecting data from different understand the problem very well, client's problem very well. Then he collect all these data, put together, and he interpret and organize the data. And then he learns about the strengths and weaknesses of the client. Now, as an example, we can interview the client's friends, teachers, parents. Then we can give a questionnaire. Then we can study his progress report. Right? So we can do lots of things to identify his strengths and weaknesses. ඉගෙන ගන්න පුළුවන් මේ විදිහට ස්ටඩි කරලා. Then then counselor identifies the nature of the problem because he has lots of data. Thereby he learns, identifies the nature of the problem. What kind of problem does he have, whether it is depression, anxiety, or psychological problem. So he identifies the nature of the problem and what causes the problem. What's the root cause for this problem? If he's suffering from some anxiety or depression, what's the root cause for depression? He identifies. Then he predicts. Prognosis means he predicts the development of the problem in the future. දැන් මෙයාට මෙහෙම එකක් දැනට තියෙනවා. ඉස්සරහට මෙයාට මෙහෙම දෙයක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එයා සමහරවිට සියදිවි නිසා ගන්න පුළුවන්. එයාට මෙන්න මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ හින්දා මේ වගේ ලක්ෂණ දැන් එයා පෙන්නනවා. ඉස්සරහට එයා සමහරවිට සියදිවි නසා ගන්න පුළුවන්, ජීවිතේ අනතුරක් කර ගන්න පුළුවන්. So like that he predicts. Then counseling, which involves taking steps to help the client. Then after that, the counselor, after identifying the problem, identifying the root cause for the problem, he takes some steps to help the client to adjust to the problem. Finally, to overcome the problem, right? Now, do you have an idea? Right? So then, non-directive, in non-directive counseling, who is the, who plays the major role?
Counselor.
Yes. In non-directive counseling, counselor. So how does he plays a major role? How
First of all, he will
what kind of
analyze
task
the.
does he do?
First of all, he will analyze the problem, the factors, the problem.
Before analyzing, what does he do? He identifies the problem here. The counselor identifies, defines, and diagnoses. He diagnoses the problem. He identifies where gonna problem is. Then he provides a solution. Right. Then now here the gist is this. Then he has the major role. He directs thinking by giving information. He explains the problem. He interprets the problem. He advises the client. Right. Then these are the activities, the steps. Does he do an analysis? How does he do an analysis?
He will collect the data.
If you
Collecting
collect
data.
data. Data from what? From different
Various sources.
Sources.
Yes, various sources. As an example, what are the sources he can collect data? What are the sources he can collect data? Now imagine you have a student who has some problems. So how do you collect data?
From his friends,
How do you collect data?
parents.
Asking about himself from his surroundings.
Yeah,
Their
so
friends.
you can interview them because now we can have a structure of interview. You can design the questions first. Then you go and ask them. So you want to ask from the friends whether your friend is very helpful, cooperative. So what are the subjects he likes most? Then what kind of relationship do you have with him? Like that. So you can interview friends. Then you can interview the teachers. You can ask, okay, so what do you think about his performance in the class? His confidence in working with others, the cooperation he shows in the group activities. So like that you can interview the teachers. You can give a questionnaire to the parents. Then you give the parents, okay, parents educate the income of and sisters. Then how do parents help the child for education? So like that you can give a questionnaire. Then after that you can study the progress report. Shishakardashini. Then you can study if he has some history about his problem, then you can study it. You can study medical reports. So like that you can find data from lots of sources. Then you organize the data to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the client. After that, you can identify the problem and the reasons for the problem. Right? Then you predict what will happen in the future if this is not treated. You can predict. Then the counseling involves taking some steps to help the client. So then help the client to adjust to the problem, adjust to the environment, and to overcome it, right? So these are the, he conducts a follow-up which involves helping the client time and again, or when the client faces the same type of problem again. What he does is, now he helps him to find here in the directive counseling, counselor finds solutions and help the client to face and help the client to find solutions faces any problem in future. ඔය වගේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඉස්සරහට ආවොත් ඒ ප්‍රශ්නෙට කොහොමද මුහුණ දෙන්නේ, ඒකට විසඳුම හොයාගන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා කවුන්සලර් කියලා දෙන්න. Because this is counselor centered නේ. Directive, right? Then what are the advantages of directive counseling? There are some advantages. One is economical. Economical means වාසිදායකයි. Why? It doesn't take much time. Why? Why it doesn't take much time? Why? Counseling doesn't take much time. What's the reason? Oh, okay. Why doesn't it take much time? Speak. Why it is economical? Tell me. ඒක වාසිදායක ලාභදායක.
He or she knows problem and but the
Who he or she?
counselor.
Yeah. Now knows the problem and he gives solutions, ready-made solutions to the client. Client කරන්නම දෙයක් නැහැ. So he gives the ready-made solution. So then it doesn't take time. He can quickly give the solutions. Then client wait. The client may get solution. So from whom the client gets a solution? From whom the client gets a solution? From the
Counselor.
Counselor.
ready-made solution. So it's for sure the client gets the solution. Then here the method focuses on intellectual adjustment of the client. So then rather than emotional adjustment, here is intellectual adjustment, the way of thinking, the reasoning, all these things are adjusted. Adjusted, rather than emotional adjustment, rather than emotions, right? What are the disadvantages of this approach? Yeah, there are 3 advantages. Economical, client surely gets a solution. Then here that more intellectual adjustment happens rather than emotional adjustment, because the client helps him to, counselor helps the client to understand the problem, think about it, right? So then what are the disadvantages? The process is counselor oriented. The major role is played by the counselor. Therefore, client becomes a dependent. He doesn't have anything to do. What he has to do is to obey the counselor. Counselor කියන එක කරන එක තමයි තියෙන්නේ. He doesn't have any right to do anything. So then this is very undemocratic. Why? Client has no right. So then everything is done by the counsel. Right. Then next one. The client in most cases becomes helpless and wait for the counselor to provide a solution. He has nothing to do. He is very helpless and he waits the solutions. Did you understand the directive counseling? Hello? Who is playing the major role in counseling?
Counselor.
Counsel. How does he play a major role?
Just only ask the problem from the client only. and he and the before then the client, the council only takes the steps and do further steps for the client. Then the
Okay. What does the client to do? What has he do? Huh?
he just listen what the council is saying only.
Yeah, he doesn't have any right. So everything is given by the counselor, right? Okay. So what are the advantages of this counseling? What are the
The
advantages?
client will get a proper solution from the counselor.
Right. Then,
Does not take much time, madam.
yeah, why doesn't it take much time?
Because counselor know the problem and
Why does
get the solution immediately.
yeah, he can quickly provide the solution, right? So this is basically based on intellectual adjustment rather than client's emotional adjustment. So what are the disadvantages?
A client become dependent on the counselor, madam.
Hmm. What else? What else? It is undemocratic because client has no any right. It's very passive. He has to wait until the counselor gives the solution. Right. Okay. Now we'll go to the next one. Did you understand this one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Non-directive counseling. Now here it was given by Carl Rogers, an American psychologist, the chief exponent of this counseling. He is the one who mainly given idea about it. In non-directive counseling, it is client-centered. Right? Now, earlier we were talking about what center?
Counselor
Yeah,
center.
counselor center. Now, this is
And
client-centered. So, what are the advantages the client has? What are the advantages he has? He is allowed free. He is allowed to
Freedom to the
free expression. Yeah, expression. Right? He can tell anything. In non-directive counseling, the client is allowed to say anything about what he wants to say. Right? Then a counselor only directs and guides. Directs and guides the client. Then counselor asks few questions from the client so that he expects some possible answers, possible solutions from the client. So here the client is an active participant. So he discusses problems with the counselor, and with the help of the counselor, he gets some solutions and say he takes some decisions. Because here the most active person is client. What's the task of the counselor?
the counselor only give the possible answers for the client.
Possible answer that this is client centeredness. He directs and guides. He facilitates, directs and guides the client. He discusses his problems with the counselor, and with the counselor's help, he finds solutions and take decisions. So what kind of role played by counselor here? Earlier, he played a very active role. Now here,
passive one, madam.
what? Yeah, very passive role is played by the counselor. So the main role of the counselor to create an atmosphere the client is able to work on his own. So now what should the counselor do? He has to create an atmosphere පරිසරයක් හදන්න ඕනි where the client is able to work on his own. Client තනියම වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න and find solutions to the problem. This approach focuses on the emotional aspect. Now earlier what was it based on?
Emotional
Earlier one?
aspect.
Earlier one? Okay. The counselor's role is very passive. Why? Who has the right to take solutions? Hello?
Counselor, counselor.
Couns- uh, who has the right to take solutions in non-directive counsel?
Client.
Client. Here, counsel is very passive. The main role is played by the counsel. Only create an atmosphere where the client is able to work on his own and find solutions to his problems. So then here this focuses on mainly what? Emotional or intellectual?
Emotional.
Emotional. Emotional aspect is there in non-directive counseling. Okay, what are the advantages? So this approach provides freedom to the person. They give freedom. Those who are seeking counseling are given freedom. Then it gives tension-free, stress-free environment where the client can work very easily. The counsel seeker is not dependent on the counselor. They don't depend on the counselor to find solutions to the problem. Therefore, they work towards self-acceptance. තමාව accept කරන තත්ත්වයට එයා පත් වෙනවා, self-acceptance. Since the counsel seeker gets a positive atmosphere, he can confront his weaknesses easily, right? The one who is seeking for counseling can hear me, Putra? There was a power cut. So now what can we do? Here, I think all have. Sorry, there was a power cut. So now what can we do then? So we'll postpone it, ne? We'll do it tomorrow. Gayani, are you there? Gayani? Gayani Kaushalya?